The chamber stretched across 5 kilometers of floating crystal platforms, each one holding delegates from civilizations that had ruled the stars for millions of years. Holographic displays showed the watching faces of 12,000 worlds, all focused on the small platform at the very center of this impossible room. Standing alone on that platform was a single human being. Ambassador David Cross adjusted his tie and looked up at the assembled might of the Galactic Council. He was 53 years old, slightly overweight, and had been a high school history teacher before the government recruited him for this mission. Now he stood before creatures that could destroy planets with a thought, and he felt strangely calm. High Chancellor Morvith rose from her throne of living light. She was a Velician, her body made of crystalline structures that shifted colors with her emotions. Right now, she burned a deep, angry red. Human representative. Her voice echoed through translation systems that carried her words to every corner of the galaxy. You stand accused of crimes against galactic civilization. Your species has violated 417 treaties. You have refused to pay tribute to the Council. You have colonized worlds without permission. And you have ignored our communications for 31 years. David nodded politely. That sounds about right. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. The Keth delegation, massive armored beings with claws that could tear through starship hulls, leaned forward in disbelief. The Mindswarm Collective, a species that existed as billions of connected insects, buzzed with confused signals. No accused species had ever responded with such casual agreement. Do you understand what this means? High Chancellor Morvith demanded. The Galactic Council has existed for 7 million years. We have destroyed 912 species that defied us. We command fleets beyond your comprehension. And you stand there as if this is a minor inconvenience? David checked his watch. He actually checked his watch, right there in front of the most powerful beings in the universe. I apologize, he said. I was just calculating the time difference. My granddaughter has a soccer game in about 4 hours, and I promised I would be there. Could we move this along? Complete silence fell over the chamber. The kind of silence that happens when reality stops making sense. The Keth War commander, a beast named Thrak, who had personally led the extinction of 3 species, stood from his seat. His voice was like grinding metal. This creature mocks us. I demand the right to execute him personally. You are welcome to try, David said. His voice had not changed, but something in his eyes made Thrak hesitate. High Chancellor Morvith raised a crystalline hand for order. Ambassador Cross, I will ask you one final time. Do you understand that the Galactic Council is declaring war on humanity? Do you understand that we will send our fleets to your world and reduce it to ash? David smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of a grandfather who found something genuinely amusing. High Chancellor, I understand perfectly. I just want to make sure you understand something too. He paused, letting the silence build. We know about your fleets. We have been watching you for 31 years. We know exactly how many ships you have, where they are stationed, and what weapons they carry. We know about the political divisions in your council. We know about the 17 species planning rebellion against your rule. We know about the resource crisis in the Velician Empire and the succession war brewing in the Keth Dominion. The chamber had gone completely still. David continued, his voice calm and measured. You see, when you first contacted us 3 decades ago, we made a decision. We decided not to respond. Instead, we decided to listen. Every transmission, every communication, every secret message between your governments. We have heard all of it. We have studied all of it. And we have prepared for exactly this moment. High Chancellor Morvath's colors shifted to a pale, uncertain blue. You are bluffing. You have 12 ships. Primitive vessels barely capable of reaching your neighboring planets. Those 12 ships are exactly what we wanted you to see. David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. With your permission, I would like to show you something. Before anyone could object, he pressed a button. The holographic displays that had been showing watching alien faces suddenly changed. They now showed a view of space. The blackness between stars dot, and then the blackness moved. What had appeared to be empty space was suddenly filled with ships. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands of human vessels materialized out of nothing, their stealth systems disengaging simultaneously. They surrounded the Galactic Council's headquarters station, weapons powered and ready. We call it the Shadow Fleet, David said calmly. We have been building it in secret for 28 years. Every ship is equipped with weapons based on technology you have never seen because we did not steal it from you. We developed it ourselves. We are very good at developing things when we have motivation. War Commander Thrak was the first to find his voice. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected construction of this scale. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. You have been watching our decoy facilities, while our real shipyards operated in locations you never thought to look. The asteroid belt, the moons of Jupiter, the dark side of your own observation posts. High Chancellor Mormeth stood frozen, her crystalline body flickering through colors that had no names. You built a fleet capable of challenging the Council, and you did it while we watched? We built a fleet capable of destroying the Council, David corrected gently. There is a difference. We could end this war before it begins. Your headquarters station is surrounded. Your home fleets are currently receiving similar visits from our other battle groups. Right now, at this very moment, human ships are positioned at every major Council world. The holographic displays changed again, showing human vessels appearing near dozens of alien planets. The scale of the operation was staggering. But we are not here to destroy you, David continued. We are here to deliver a message. Humanity does not want war. We never wanted war. We wanted to be left alone to develop at our own pace, to make our own choices, to build our own future. You forced this confrontation by declaring war on a species you knew nothing about. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings that had considered themselves gods. So here is our offer. Go home. Withdraw your declaration of war. Leave humanity alone. We will not attack you. We will not seek revenge. We will simply continue building our civilization as we see fit. Your empire can continue as it always has, with one small change. You will no longer threaten Earth. War Commander Thrak slammed his clawed fist against his seat. You expect us to simply surrender? To accept humiliation? I expect you to make a practical decision, David replied. Your fleets cannot defeat us. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your political structure is already crumbling from internal conflicts that we have done nothing but observe. You have two choices. Accept peace and survive, or continue this war and discover exactly how prepared humanity truly is. High Chancellor Mormeth looked at her fellow council leaders. She saw fear in their eyes, uncertainty, and the beginning of something that might have been respect. You planned this, she whispered. Every moment of this confrontation. You wanted us to declare war so you could demonstrate your strength without firing a shot. David nodded. We could have revealed ourselves quietly. We could have negotiated from the shadows. But we needed the galaxy to see this moment. We needed every watching species to understand that humanity will not be bullied, that we will not bow, and that we will always, always be ready. He straightened his tie one final time. Now, if there are no further questions, I really do need to get back for that soccer game. My granddaughter is the goalkeeper, and she gets nervous if I am not there to cheer her on. He turned and walked off the platform, leaving the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting in stunned silence as the human fleet hung in space around them, waiting to see what they would choose. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 6 hours after Ambassador Cross returned to Earth. High Chancellor Morvith had not moved from her throne, her crystalline body cycling through colors that her advisors had never seen before: fear, confusion, and something that might have been curiosity. "We cannot let this stand," War Commander Thrak growled. His massive form paced the chamber floor, claws clicking against the ancient stone. "A species 40 years out of their cradle has made fools of us. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, every subject world will see weakness." Counselor Vren of the Mindsworm Collective spoke through her chorus of insects, their voices harmonizing into a single cold tone. "The commander speaks truth. Our authority depends on the perception of absolute power. The humans have shattered that perception. We must restore it." But there was one voice that had remained silent throughout the debate. Ancient Arbiter Kalos, the oldest living member of the Council, a being whose species had been part of the Galactic Order since its founding 7 million years ago. His skin was like weathered stone, and his eyes held the weight of ages beyond counting. "You speak of power," Kalos said slowly, his voice creaking like old wood. "But you do not understand what we witnessed today." Thrak turned on him. "We witnessed a trick, stealth technology, and clever positioning. Nothing more. You witnessed restraint." Kalos rose from his seat, and despite his age, his presence commanded instant attention. The human fleet surrounded this station. They had weapons locked on our home worlds. They could have fired. They could have ended us in a single coordinated strike. And they chose not to. High Chancellor Morvith finally spoke. "What is your point, Ancient One?" "My point is that I have lived for 900,000 years. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen countless species discover faster than light travel and reach for the stars. And in all that time, I have never seen what I saw today." His ancient eyes swept the chamber. "A species that had absolute power over its enemies and chose mercy instead of destruction." "Mercy is weakness," Thrak spat. "Is it?" Kalos walked slowly toward the center of the chamber. "We destroyed the Vorn because they refused tribute. We shattered the Calaxis because they developed weapons we found threatening. We have burned worlds and ended civilizations because we could. And what has it brought us? Fear, resentment, 17 species plotting rebellion against us, as the human ambassador so accurately stated." He stopped and turned to face them all. "The humans did not attack us because they do not need to. They have already won. Not through weapons, but through something we abandoned long ago. They have given hope to every species watching this broadcast. Hope that the Council can be defied. Hope that strength does not require cruelty." While the Council debated, something very different was happening on Earth. In a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Maria Santos stared at screens showing the disposition of human forces across the galaxy. The Shadow Fleet remained in position, waiting, watching. Her aide, Colonel Thomas Grant, approached with a tablet. "Ma'am, we are receiving transmissions from multiple Council worlds. Small factions, resistance groups, minor species. They are asking for contact. How many?" 47 separate communications so far. More coming in every hour. General Santos allowed herself a small smile. This was the plan. Not to defeat the Council through force, but to expose it. To show the galaxy that the mighty empire was not as invincible as it claimed. "Begin establishing secure channels," she ordered. "We are not going to fight this war alone." Back in the Council chamber, the debate had grown heated. Several delegations had withdrawn to consult with their governments. Others were openly arguing, their disputes threatening to tear the alliance apart. High Chancellor Morvith finally restored order with a pulse of blinding light from her crystalline form. Enough. We must present a united front, or we will lose everything. I am authorizing the mobilization of the combined fleet. Every member species will contribute their maximum military capacity. We will assemble a force so overwhelming that the humans will have no choice but to submit. Ancient Arbiter Kalos shook his head sadly. You did not hear anything I said. I heard, Ancient One, but I have a council to preserve. History will judge whether my choice was right. The order went out across the galaxy. Ships began gathering. Crews were mobilized. Weapons were charged. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history was coming together for one purpose: the destruction of humanity. 3 months later, the combined fleet of the Galactic Council numbered over 8 million vessels. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Carrier ships holding thousands of fighters. Support vessels stretching back for light years. It was a force designed to end civilizations. And it was pointed directly at Earth. Admiral Franklin Burke stood on the bridge of the human flagship Endeavour and watched the approaching armada on his tactical display. He was 60 years old, a former submarine commander who had spent his career in the silent depths of Earth's oceans. Now he commanded a fleet facing enemies from the stars. They are dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, his sensor officer reported. 8 million ships confirmed. Only 8 million? Burke raised an eyebrow. We expected more. His first officer, Commander Rachel Torres, looked at him with concern. Sir, we have 6,000 ships. Even with our technological advantages, those numbers ... Those numbers do not matter. Burke turned to face his crew. They have quantity. We have something better. We have been preparing for this exact scenario for 30 years. Every simulation, every war game, every tactical study has led to this moment. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships. This is Admiral Burke. The enemy believes they are coming to conquer us. They believe their numbers guarantee victory, but they have made a critical error. They have underestimated humanity. They have forgotten that we are a species that fought our way to the top of a brutal evolutionary ladder. We have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own worst impulses. We did not reach the stars by being weak. We reached them by being stubborn, clever, and absolutely unwilling to give up. He paused, letting his words sink in. Today, we are not fighting for survival. We are fighting for something greater. We are fighting to prove that a species can be both powerful and merciful. That strength does not require cruelty. That we can win without becoming the monsters we are facing. The combined fleet began its approach, confident in its overwhelming numbers. They did not know that the human fleet had spent 3 months preparing the solar system itself as a weapon. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris had been carefully positioned and equipped out as the first wave of Council ships crossed the threshold of Neptune's orbit. Admiral Burke gave a single command: begin Operation Lighthouse. The solar system lit up, not with weapons fire, but with something far more terrifying. Every hidden device, every concealed installation, every prepared position activated simultaneously. The Council fleet found itself surrounded not by a few thousand human ships, but by millions of automated weapons platforms, sensor arrays, and defense systems that had been hiding in plain sight. War Commander Thrak, leading the invasion from his flagship, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where did these come from? Our intelligence showed nothing. His sensor officer's voice trembled. Commander, we are detecting weapons signatures that do not match any known technology. And they are everywhere. The humans have turned their entire star system into a fortress. The display flickered and changed, showing a human face. Admiral Burke looked calmly at his enemy. War Commander Thrak, I presume. You have brought 8 million ships to destroy one world. Allow me to show you what one world can do when given sufficient motivation. The defense grid powered up, and the war truly began. The battle lasted 11 hours. When it ended, the greatest military force in galactic history had been reduced to floating debris and disabled hulks drifting through the cold darkness of space. War. Commander Thrak stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching emergency lights flicker as his crew struggled to restore basic systems. His claws had gouged deep grooves into his command chair. Around him, officers reported the scale of the disaster in voices hollow with shock. 4 million ships destroyed. 3 million disabled. Communications across the fleet are failing. We cannot coordinate a retreat. Thrak said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had led the most powerful armada ever assembled into what he believed would be a simple extermination mission. Instead, his forces had been systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever encountered. The humans had not met them in a traditional battle line. They had used their transformed solar system as a maze, drawing Council forces into kill zones where automated weapons tore through formations with surgical precision. When Council ships tried to concentrate their firepower, human vessels would appear from hidden positions, strike critical targets, and vanish before retaliation was possible. But the most devastating tactic was not the weapons. It was the targeting. Human forces had specifically aimed to disable rather than destroy. Engines were knocked out. Weapons systems were neutralized. Life support was left intact. Millions of Council soldiers drifted helplessly in space, alive but unable to fight, watching as their invasion crumbled around them. A communication signal cut through the static. Admiral Burke's face appeared on what remained of Thrak's display. War Commander, your fleet is defeated. Your soldiers are alive because we chose not to kill them. This battle is over. Thrak's voice came out as a rasp. Why? You could have destroyed us completely. Yes, we could have. But that was never our goal. Burke leaned forward, his expression serious but not cruel. We wanted to defeat you. We did not want to commit genocide. There is a difference between winning a war and becoming monsters. You think this changes anything? The Council will send more fleets. They will keep coming until your world is ash, will they? Burke's tone shifted slightly. War Commander, while you were attacking our Solar system, something interesting happened across the galaxy. Perhaps you should check what remains of your long-range communications. Thrak gestured to his officers, who worked frantically to restore sensors and communication arrays. When the reports began coming in, the War Commander felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. True despair. Across the galaxy, the Council was burning. Not from human attacks, but from within. The rebellion that Ambassador Cross had predicted was happening, sparked by humanity's demonstration that the Council could be defied. On Galician Prime, citizens had stormed the government quarter, demanding an end to the war and the resignation of High Chancellor Morvith. On a dozen Keth worlds, military commanders were refusing orders, unwilling to send more soldiers to die in a war that was clearly unwinnable. The Mindswong Collective had fragmented into competing factions, each blaming the others for the catastrophe. And on 47 worlds where the Council had maintained control through fear and force, oppressed populations were rising up, emboldened by the knowledge that the mighty empire was not invincible after all. General Maria Santos received the reports in her command bunker, watching data streams paint a picture of galactic chaos. Colonel Grant stood beside her, struggling to process the scope of what was happening. Ma'am, we are receiving requests for assistance from rebel groups on over 60 worlds. They want weapons, supplies, tactical support. And what are we sending them? Nothing military. As you ordered, We are providing only humanitarian aid and communication equipment. Santos nodded. Good. We are not here to conquer anyone. We are here to give them the tools to free themselves. This was the true strategy that humanity had developed over 30 years of watching and waiting. They had understood something that the Council had forgotten long ago. Empires built on fear are always fragile. They require constant displays of strength to maintain their authority. The moment that strength is questioned, the entire structure begins to collapse. Humanity had not defeated the Council through superior firepower. They had defeated it by proving that it could be questioned. On what remained of the Council headquarters station, High Chancellor Morvith faced a chamber that was half empty. Many delegations had recalled their representatives. Others sat in stunned silence, watching their civilization unravel on the holographic displays. Ancient Arbiter Kalos approached her throne, his weathered face showing neither triumph nor judgment. I warned you, he said simply. Morvath's crystalline body had dimmed to a pale, exhausted gray. You did. I did not listen. No, you did not. And now the Council faces a choice. We can continue this war, pour our remaining resources into a conflict we cannot win, and watch our empire tear itself apart. Or we can do something that the Council has never done in 7 million years. What is that? We can ask for peace. The word hung in the air like something alien and unfamiliar. Peace, not imposed through superior force, not negotiated from a position of dominance. Genuine peace requested by the losing side. They will demand surrender, Morvith whispered. Perhaps not. Kalos turned to look at the displays, showing human forces holding position throughout the solar system. Not advancing, not attacking, simply waiting. The humans have shown us something unprecedented today. They have shown us mercy. I suspect they may show it again. 3 days later, a single Council ship approached Earth under a flag of truce. On board was High Chancellor Morvith herself, accompanied by Ancient Arbiter Kalos, and a small delegation of representatives from species that had voted to seek peace. They were met in orbit by Ambassador David Cross, who welcomed them aboard the human diplomatic vessel with a handshake and a warm smile. High Chancellor, I am glad you came. Morvith studied him with her crystalline eyes. You expected this? We hoped for it. War was never our preference. We simply prepared for it because we knew you would not give us any other choice. The negotiations that followed would reshape the galaxy. But they began with a simple question from Morvith, asked in a voice that held genuine confusion. Ambassador Cross, I must understand something. You had us at your mercy. You could have destroyed our fleet, invaded our worlds, taken everything we built. Why did you not? David considered the question carefully before answering. High Chancellor, humanity spent most of its history at war with itself. We fought over land, resources, religion, ideology. We came very close to destroying ourselves many times. But somewhere along the way, we learned something important. We learned that the point of winning is not to crush your enemy. It is to create a future where you do not need to fight anymore. He gestured toward the viewport, where Earth hung blue and green against the stars. We did not build our fleet to conquer the galaxy. We built it to prove that we could defend ourselves. Now that we have proven that, we would rather build something else. Partnerships, trade agreements, cultural exchange. We want to learn from you and share what we have learned. We want to be part of the galactic community, not its ruler. Morvath's colors shifted to something complex and unreadable. You are very strange creatures. We get that a lot. David smiled. But consider the alternative. You have spent 7 million years ruling through fear. How has that worked out? The High Chancellor had no answer to that question. But for the first time since this crisis began, she allowed herself to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, There might be a better way. The real negotiations were about to begin. The peace negotiations had lasted 6 months, and the galaxy was slowly beginning to heal. Former council worlds were finding their footing as independent states. Trade routes that had been controlled by military force were now opening to free commerce. Species that had been enemies for millions of years were having their first cautious conversations, but in a classified research facility deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Dr. Anna Kowalski was looking at something that made her blood run cold. "Run the analysis again," she ordered her team. "There has to be an error." Her lead technician, James Murphy, shook his head grimly. "We have run it 17 times. Dr. Kowalski, the results are consistent." On. The screen before them was data from humanities. Most secret project. The analysis of an artifact recovered from a crashed spacecraft found in the Sahara Desert in 1952. The craft had been unlike anything the Council used. Its technology was more advanced by orders of magnitude, and it contained a warning dot. Dr. Kowalski had spent her entire career decoding that warning. Now, finally, she understood what it meant. "Get me a secure line to General Santos. Priority Alpha." 2 hours later, an emergency meeting convened in the same bunker where humanity had coordinated the war against the Council. General Santos, Ambassador Cross, Admiral Burke, and the senior leadership of Earth's defense network gathered around, a holographic display showing Dr. Kowalski's findings. 73 years ago, the scientist began, we recovered a vessel from what we initially believed was an alien species we had never encountered. We spent decades trying to understand its technology, which was far beyond anything we had seen. It is, in fact, the foundation of everything we used in the war. Our stealth systems, our weapons, our faster-than-light drives. All of it came from that one ship. Admiral Burke frowned. "We know this history, Doctor. What is the emergency?" "The emergency is what we finally decoded from the ship's data core." Kowalski's hands trembled slightly as she manipulated the display. The vessel did not come from any species in the current galactic community. It came from a civilization that existed before the Council, before the Valisians, the Keth, any of them. A civilization that called themselves the Architects. The holographic display changed to show ancient star charts, vast construction projects spanning entire galaxies, and images of beings that seemed to be made of pure energy. The Architects were the first spacefaring species in this region of the universe. They existed for over 100 million years. They built wonders we can barely comprehend. And then, 8 million years ago, they disappeared. Ambassador Cross leaned forward. "Disappeared how?" "That is what the warning is about." Kowalski's voice dropped. "They did not die of natural causes. They did not destroy themselves in a war. They were consumed by something they called the Hollow." The display shifted again, showing distorted images that seemed to hurt the eyes. Darkness that moved. Emptiness that hungered. Something that existed in the spaces between stars, waiting. The Architects encountered the Hollow at the peak of their civilization. They fought it for 10,000 years. In the end, they could not win. The best they could do was put it to sleep. They used technologies we do not understand to force the Hollow into a dormant state. But they knew it would not last forever. How long? General Santos asked quietly. The Architects estimated their containment would hold for approximately 8 million years. Kowalski met their eyes. "It has now been 8 million years. The containment is failing. And according to our most recent deep space observations, the Hollow is beginning to wake." The room fell silent. These were people who had faced the greatest military force in the galaxy without flinching. Now, for the first time, they looked afraid. "There is more," Kowalski continued. "The Architects did not just leave a warning. They left a plan, a contingency for the species that came after them. She brought up new data, showing genetic sequences and evolutionary patterns. They seeded hundreds of worlds with the potential for intelligent life. They manipulated evolution on those worlds, hoping that someday one of those species would develop the strength and wisdom to face the hollow when it returned. They left caches of their technology hidden throughout the galaxy. The ship we found in the Sahara was one of those caches. Admiral Burke's eyes widened. You are saying Earth was one of these seeded worlds? Earth was the primary world. The architects invested more resources in our planet than any other. They believed that if any species could stand against the hollow, it would be us. Humanity was designed to be a weapon against the darkness. Ambassador Cross stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. We just finished convincing the galaxy that we are not conquerors, he said slowly. Now you are telling me that we were engineered to fight a cosmic horror that destroyed a civilization lasting 100 million years. I am telling you that we have a choice to make, Kowalski replied. We can keep this information secret and hope the hollow does not reach us in our lifetimes. Or we can warn the galaxy and try to prepare together. General Santos studied the data for a long moment. How much time do we have? Unknown. The containment is failing gradually. It could be decades. It could be months. The architects were not precise about the timeline. The decision that followed would define humanity's role in the galaxy for generations to come. 1 week later, Ambassador Cross stood once again in the great chamber of what had been the Galactic Council. It was now called the Galactic Assembly, a more democratic body where Earth held a seat as an equal partner rather than a subject world. High Chancellor Morvith, now serving as Assembly Coordinator, called the session to order. Ambassador Cross has requested emergency time to address the Assembly. Given humanity's role in recent events, we have granted this request. Ambassador? Cross walked to the central platform where he had stood months ago, facing accusations and threats. This time, the faces looking down at him held curiosity rather than hostility. Representatives of the Galactic Assembly, he began, I come before you today not with demands or ultimatums. I come with a warning and a request for help. He activated a holographic display showing Dr. Kowalski's findings. As the information unfolded, he watched reactions range from disbelief to horror to something that might have been hoped at when he finished. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ancient Arbiter Kalos rose from his seat. I have lived for 900,000 years, the ancient being said, his voice heavy with memory. In all that time, I have heard whispers of the architects. Legends passed down through generations beyond counting. I always believed they were myths, stories told to explain mysteries we could not understand. He turned to face the assembly. But I also remember the old warnings, the prayers our ancestors spoke into the void, begging for protection from the darkness between stars. We forgot those prayers as we grew powerful. We told ourselves that we had conquered the universe. His ancient eyes found Ambassador Cross. Perhaps we forgot because we were afraid to remember. Another delegate rose, a Velician scientist whose color shifted with intellectual excitement. If what the humans say is true, then the technology they used against us came from the architects. Technology designed specifically to combat this threat. The humans are not just warning us. They are showing us that there may be a way to fight back. The debate that followed lasted for hours, but in the end, the vote was unanimous. The Galactic Assembly would unite with humanity to face the awakening threat. Ancient enemies would become allies. Resources would be shared. Knowledge would be pooled. As the session ended, High Chancellor Morvith approached Ambassador Cross. You could have kept this secret, she observed. Used it to maintain dominance over us. Cross shook his head. That was never who we wanted to be. Besides, if the Hollow is as dangerous as the architects believed, we are going to need every ally we can get. And you believe we can win? Against something that destroyed a civilization lasting 100 million years? Cross looked up at the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, former enemies now standing together against an unimaginable threat. I believe that the architects seeded this galaxy with hope. They gave us their technology, their knowledge, and their dream that someday their children would be strong enough to face the darkness. I believe that humanity was designed for this moment. And I believe that together, with all the species of this galaxy standing united, we might just prove them right. Somewhere in the depths of space, in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred in its prison. It sensed the containment weakening. It sensed the life that flourished in the universe beyond. And it began, slowly, to hunger. The real war was about to begin. The Hollow came on the anniversary of the first peace treaty between humanity and the Galactic Assembly. It emerged from the void between galaxies like a wound in reality itself, a darkness so complete that stars disappeared when it passed. Within days, 3 outer rim colonies went silent. Their distress signals simply stopped, leaving nothing but emptiness where thriving worlds had once existed. Admiral Burke stood on the bridge of the unified fleet's command ship, watching the tactical display with the grim focus of a man who had spent his life preparing for impossible battles. Around him, officers from a dozen different species worked together in a coordination that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. The Hollow is accelerating toward the core systems, his Delician tactical officer reported. At current speed, it will reach populated space in approximately 72 hours. How large is it? The officer's crystalline body flickered with colors that indicated fear. Admiral, it is not a fixed size. It grows as it consumes. Current estimates suggest it spans approximately 3 light years. And it is getting bigger with every system it absorbs. Burke nodded slowly. Behind the fear, he felt something else. Something that had sustained humanity through every crisis they had ever faced. Determination. On Earth. Dr. Anna Kowalski worked frantically in her laboratory, surrounded by the greatest scientific minds from across the galaxy. They had been studying the architect technology for 2 years, learning its secrets, adapting it for the coming confrontation. Now they faced the final challenge, creating a weapon that could harm something that seemed to exist beyond the rules of normal reality. The architects called it the Severance Protocol, Kowalski explained to her team. A device that can separate the Hollow from normal spacetime, cutting it off from the energy it needs to sustain itself. But to deploy it, we need to get close enough to the Hollow's core. And nothing we have can survive contact with that darkness. General Santos, now serving as Supreme Commander of the Unified Defense Force, studied the problem from her command center. How close? Within 100 kilometers of the center of the phenomenon. Any further, and the protocol will not have enough effect. That is a suicide mission. Anything that gets that close will be consumed. Kowalski hesitated, then brought up new data on her screen. Not necessarily. We have been studying the genetic engineering the architects used when they seeded Earth. They did not just make humans intelligent. They made us resistant. Resistant to what? To the Hollow. Our physiology, our brain chemistry, even the composition of our cells. It is all slightly different from other species in ways that seemed random until we understood the context. The architects designed humanity to survive in conditions that would destroy other life forms, including exposure to the Hollow. Santos stared at the data, then at Kowalski. You are saying humans can survive where others cannot? I am saying humans can survive longer. Long enough, perhaps, to deploy the Severance Protocol. But whoever pilots that ship will not be coming back. The call for volunteers went out across the fleet. The response was overwhelming. Humans from every nation, Every background, every walk of life offered to pilot the weapon into the heart of darkness. But in the end, the mission required someone with specific skills, someone who had proven themselves capable of impossible things. Ambassador David Cross stood before the selection committee, his request to volunteer having caused considerable controversy. "You are 60 years old," General Santos pointed out. "You are a diplomat, not a soldier. I am also the man who stood before the entire Galactic Council and convinced them that humanity was worth respecting. I am the man who negotiated the peace that made this alliance possible. And I am the man who understood, from the very beginning, that this moment would come." He met the eyes of every person in the room. The architects did not just design us to survive the hollow. They designed us to choose to face it, to volunteer when others could not, to sacrifice when sacrifice was necessary. That is what makes humanity special. Not our technology, not our weapons, but our willingness to stand up when standing up means we might not sit back down. Ancient Arbiter Kalos, who had become one of humanity's closest allies, spoke from his seat on the committee. "Ambassador Cross, I have known you for only 2 years, but in that time you have changed my understanding of what intelligent species can be. If you believe this is your duty, I will not argue against it. But I will ask you one question. Are you afraid?" Cross smiled, the same warm smile he had worn when facing down the hostile council, when negotiating peace, when holding his granddaughter after her soccer games. "Terrified," he admitted. "But that is what courage means, is it not? Being afraid and doing the right thing anyway?" The final mission launched 3 days later. The unified fleet of 500,000 ships from every species in the assembly took position around the approaching hollow, ready to provide whatever support they could. In the center of their formation, a single vessel powered toward the darkness. David Cross sat alone in the pilot's chair, the severance protocol humming with energy behind him. Through his viewport, he could see the hollow growing larger with every moment. It was not just darkness. It was the absence of everything. Looking at it hurt something deep in his soul. His communication system crackled with incoming messages. From the fleet, from Earth, from worlds across the galaxy. Millions of voices offering thanks, encouragement, prayers in languages he did not understand, but whose meaning was clear. Admiral Burke's voice cut through the chorus. "Ambassador Cross, you are approaching the point of no return. All systems reading nominal. We are with you. Thank you, Admiral. It has been an honor serving with you all." Cross looked at the darkness ahead and thought about his life, his career as a teacher, sharing knowledge with young minds, his unexpected second career as the voice of humanity to the stars, his granddaughter, who is probably watching this broadcast with millions of others, too young to fully understand, but old enough to know something important was happening. He thought about what it meant to be human, the capacity for both terrible cruelty and incredible kindness, the stubborn refusal to accept the impossible, the ability to find hope even in the darkest moments. The architects had seen something in humanity, something worth preserving, worth nurturing, worth designing an entire species around. Now he would find out if their faith was justified. The ship entered the hollow. The darkness was not silent. It whispered with the voices of everything it had consumed. Stars and planets, civilizations and dreams, millions of years of accumulated existence, trapped forever in eternal hunger. Cross felt it pressing against his mind, trying to break him, trying to make him despair. But the architects had built well. His human brain resisted where others would have shattered. He pushed forward, the small vessel somehow holding together as reality warped around him. The core of the hollow was not darkness. It was a wound, a tear in the fabric of existence itself, bleeding nothing into everything. And David Cross, with a calm that surprised even him, understood what he needed to do. Severance protocol activated, he reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Beginning final approach. He closed his eyes and thought of his granddaughter, of her smile when she made a difficult save, of the future she would grow up in, a galaxy united, a darkness defeated. The protocol fired dot from the unified fleet. They watched as the hollow convulsed. Its endless expansion suddenly halted. The wound at its center began to close, cut off from the energy that sustained it. Slowly, impossibly, the darkness began to shrink dot. It took 3 days for the hollow to finally collapse entirely, folding in on itself until nothing remained but empty space. 3 days during which the entire galaxy held its breath, watching, hoping. They never found David Cross's ship. The protocol had done its work, but whatever was left of the vessel had been taken with the hollow when it folded. Some said he had died in the deployment. Others believed he was still out there somehow, in a place beyond normal understanding. But his legacy remained. 1 year later, the Galactic Assembly unveiled a memorial at the site of the final battle. Representatives from every species gathered to honor the man who had given everything to save them all. Among them stood his granddaughter, now 12 years old, wearing a medal that her grandfather had been awarded posthumously. High Chancellor Morvith addressed the assembly, her crystalline body glowing with colors that indicated both sorrow and hope. David Cross taught the galaxy something that we had forgotten. He taught us that true strength is not measured in weapons or fleets. It is measured in the willingness to sacrifice for others. To stand up when standing up is hard. To believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when darkness seems overwhelming. She turned to look at the memorial, a simple stone bearing a human face and words in 100 languages. The architects designed humanity to face the hollow, but they could not have predicted what humanity would become. They could not have predicted that the same species they created as a weapon would choose to be protectors instead, that they would use their strength not to conquer, but to unite, that they would give everything not for glory, but for hope. Ancient Arbiter Kalos rose to add his own words. I have lived for nearly 1,000,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall, watched species ascend and decline. And I tell you now, with the certainty of ages, I have never met a species like humanity. They are young and reckless, stubborn and strange. But they are also brave and kind, curious and hopeful. They are what the universe needed, even when we did not know we needed it. He looked at the young girl standing near the memorial, the granddaughter of a man who had changed everything. The future belongs to those who dare to hope. The future belongs to humanity, and to all of us who have learned to hope alongside them. The assembly erupted in applause that echoed across worlds, a sound of unity and gratitude that would have made David Cross smile, somewhere beyond the stars, in a place where time and space had no meaning. A teacher who had become an ambassador, who had become a hero, rested in the knowledge that he had done what he set out to do. He had reminded the galaxy that one person could make a difference, and that humanity, for all its flaws, was worth believing in.